Today on the Bourbon Bytes podcast, we have new whiskeys from Blue Run, Little Book, Very Old St. Nick, and 15 Stars. Plus, Microsoft is banning pirators and rewarding Discorders. Then I have a bite-sized review of King of Kentucky's 16-year-old bourbon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bourbon Bytes podcast, a whiskey podcast with a gaming twist. I'm your host, Clifton, and this is the week of Thursday, May 14th, 2026. We are on our way into the warmer months of the year, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you for continuing to listen. I know there's a bit of a summer slump in terms of consuming whiskey content during the summer. Thank you for choosing to tune in, even if you are listening in the future. I appreciate you coming back to these older episodes, but if you are listening week to week, I appreciate you. Thank you for being a follower. But even though this is a bit of a slower time in the world of whiskey, there are a few new releases that I want to share with you guys. The first of which comes to us from Blue Run, and it's actually part of their Blueprint series, and it's a new 105 proof bourbon that just launched this month. And it is a combination of two distinct mash bills, a wheated bourbon and an experimental mash the company calls its Founder's Mash. Now, this Founder's Mash consists of a 80-15-05 mash bill, and they don't go into detail about what that actually stands for. I assume 80% corn, 15% wheat or rye, 0% of something, and 5% of probably malted barley. I don't know. Again, they don't go into detail. I actually searched this mash bill trying to find the details on it, and no one's actually reported on it. I see like Fred Minnick and Breaking Bourbon, they've just repeated the 80-15-05 without any further explanation. So I have no clue what that stands for. But this whiskey is coming out at $69.99 MSRP. Again, if you're a Blue Run fan, this may be exciting for you. It is the first in this new Blueprint series. So it sounds like they're setting a foundation for a certain flavor profile to expect from Blue Run. And I love when distilleries do that, right? Like early on, they're experimenting, they're sourcing, they're doing these different experimental casks. But once they actually find their flavor profile that they excel at, they're going to really hone in on that. And I love to see Blue Run and other, newer distilleries finding their place in the flavor profile, right? We go to certain distilleries for certain flavors, and Blue Run is trying to establish theirs. But we're not done there. We have plenty other new bourbon releases. Beam Distilling just announced their Little Book Chapter 10. It's called All the Wiser. It's the 10th chapter of this limited release. And this says, after years of chasing precision and perfect blends, Freddie No shifted his philosophy for this release. All the Wiser reflects a more intuitive approach, one that embraces the unpredictability of blending and allows the whiskey itself to lead. Of course, this is uncut and unfiltered at 122.6 proof, suggested retail price of $159.99. And this is what it's made of. This is interesting because it kind of feels like a throwback to a previous Little Book release. This whiskey consists of a 14-year-old Basil Hayden bourbon, an 11-year-old Knob Creek bourbon, a 10-year-old Booker's bourbon, a 9-year-old Knob Creek bourbon, a 9-year-old Baker's bourbon, and a 4-year-old Jim Beam bourbon whiskey finished in sherry and toasted bourbon casks. If that sounds familiar, you're probably thinking of Little Book Chapter 3, The Road Home. This is one of their first releases, but it was a similar concept. They combined a blend of their other products. So that one had some younger whiskey in it. It was like a 9-year-old Knob Creek, 9-year-old Basil Hayden, 11-year Booker, and 12-year Baker. So a little bit of a switch up in those product lines there. But this feels almost like a tribute to what was going on with that release. I know we have a listener of the podcast and viewer of the channel and Byte Club member, Adam Free, or UA Fly Fisher, over on Discord. He tends to buy all the little books, so I'm curious to hear his thoughts on this release. Does he think that it can live up to the Chapter 3? You guys will have to ask him on our Discord server. By the way, if you guys are not yet there, that is our whiskey community where all of our members, both Byte Club members and just viewers and listeners of the channel, come together to talk whiskey, video games, and all other life updates, plus sharing cute pet photos. If you want to get in on that, go to bourbonbytes.com. There's a link there to join the Discord community. We would love to have you there. We do things like our movie nights for our Bite Club members, random hangouts, random gaming sessions, and all the fun stuff. So go there, tell Adam I sent you because he's the little book pro of the channel here. So very curious to see how that one is. I'm curious for sure. I don't know if I'm willing to pay the price for it, but I would love a chance to, if I can't try it, at least hear a little book fan's perspective of it. So if you are a fan of these little book releases, let me know what you think. Now, another brand that I don't really talk too much about because it's one that mainly focuses on rye whiskey, at least from what I've seen. Very Old St. Nick is releasing a new bourbon for 2026. It is called the Immaculata bourbon. It's supposed to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the brand, and it's a blend of 8-year-old preservation wheated pot still bourbon, a 10-year-old high rye Kentucky bourbon, and a more traditional 19-year-old Kentucky bourbon barrel. Now, of course, this is going to be uncut, unfiltered, 118.2 proof. Price is not yet announced, but as someone that's not usually a follower of Very Old St. Nick, this one makes me pretty excited because it's all Kentucky bourbon. It's a good age, great proof. I just don't know about the price. Now, they're not releasing that until this Saturday at the distillery. They've not announced anything about the pricing or anything like that, but they say that they're going to have a tasting with their master of maturation and general manager Kyle Lloyd at the distillery at 9:30 a.m. So I'll keep you updated on that if it becomes more available and as we find out more about the pricing. Now, another one that I hear a lot about but just haven't had a chance to try, 15 Stars is releasing two new whiskeys. One, a 12-year-old American whiskey, and two, a 6-year-old straight bourbon whiskey under their Kentuck County line. Now, I'm saying Kentuck because it's spelled Kentucke. It's a reference to the original Kentuck district, which was where Bourbon County was founded back in 1776. I'm not sure if it's actually pronounced Kentucky and just spelled that way. I'm just saying it that way because I'm not a native Kentuckian, so you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. But these releases sound really good. So the 12-year-old American whiskey is a blend of straight bourbon and American whiskey, distilled from a bourbon whiskey mash bill and aged for 7 years in second used oak before an additional 5 years in new charred oak. It's going to be bottled at 90 proof with a suggested retail price of $57.99. Very, very fair price. And the other one is a 6-year-old straight bourbon whiskey. It's a blend of two different bourbons, each aged a minimum of 6 years, also bottled at 90 proof, and a suggested retail price of $37.99. From what I've seen, 15 Stars seems to be a very premium or ultra premium line. So I'm excited to see these lower proof and lower price point entries into their portfolio. Again, never really seen it out here in Southern California, but it's one that I hear great things about from my friends over on the East Coast. So these sound very approachable. If you get a chance to try them, I think it's, hard to pass up a good bourbon at $37.99 is all I got to say. Now, there is one more new whiskey that I have to talk about because as soon as I saw the label, I shared it on my Discord server because I wanted to know what you guys thought. There is a new, oh God, this is so difficult to say, a new goat milk flavored whiskey coming to us from Tamworth Distillery, or House of Tamworth as they call themselves. I only know about this because the TTV label got posted on Coming Whiskey. How do you guys feel about goat milk flavored whiskey? I mean, the whole concept of like milk and whiskey just to me does not go together. I know like an Irish coffee has some creamer in it, that's fine. And I know sometimes people do a like coconut milk or coconut fat washed whiskey. I'm not a big fan of it, but I know it's kind of a thing. But goat milk whiskey? I don't know. I don't mind goat milk. I don't mind goat cheese, but putting it into a flavor of a whiskey makes me very, very concerned. And I'm not the only one because I asked you guys on Discord what you guys thought of it. Tyler sent a gagging gif. Brandon in Delaware said, I hate it, but I need to try it. So, hey, someone's interested in it. Fred says, I can appreciate some farmy scotches, but I have zero desire to try that. They're going to release it in 200 milliliter containers, so maybe they don't have very high hopes, or maybe it's very exclusive to the distillery. Zophar said, does that have that tang? Oh, I don't know. I'll ask Brandon in Delaware if he needs to try it. I'll ask him to let me know how it is because I don't think I'll be trying that one. Well, before we get into our bite-sized review, we have two pieces of quick gaming news, one very positive and the other quite negative. Both of them coming to us from Microsoft Xbox. We'll talk about the negative first. So there is a leak of Forza Horizon 6, which is the latest edition of the Forza lineup. It actually got uploaded early on Steam without being encrypted. So people were able to pirate this and get the full racing game downloaded before it even came out. So what they did is they're handing out bans to people that pirated that game for 8,000 years. Yes, they're putting an 8,000-year ban on people's Microsoft Xbox profiles if they were one of the ones that pirated the game. It says they'll be unbanned on December 31st of the year 9,999. Due to cheating slash unallowed modding, you have been suspended. So they are taking this very, very seriously. Listen, Forza is one of Xbox's biggest properties. This game has been a huge launch for them, and they're even including it in the Microsoft Game Pass. So if you were one of the ones that decided to download it early, I would maybe be deleting that and maybe changing your Microsoft login if you can. I've heard the only way to get past this ban is to replace the entire motherboard of your Xbox. So it's not just a user level profile thing, it's like the whole console. So if you're gonna pirate things, don't do it on a console. That's all I'll say. I'm not gonna say anything else. But don't do it on a console. Come on, man. But in good news, there's actually a cool announcement. Xbox Game Pass is allowing a Discord Nitro subscription included with the Xbox Game Pass. Now, if you do not know what Discord Nitro is, it is a way to boost servers on Discord, give them extra features like high-res streaming, custom emojis, special banners, and custom invite links. Listen, as a owner of a Discord server, this is huge. So if you happen to be an Xbox Game Pass subscriber and you are not a member of another Discord server that you're willing to offer this Nitro bonus to, I would love to be your home to use that bonus. So like I said, it's included at no extra cost. So if you have an Xbox Game Pass, you can just connect that to your Discord server. And once you are a Discord Nitro subscriber, you can what they call boost the server of your choice. Here's your chance to help support the channel in a way that you may not have expected. All right, well, that does it for our news this week. Now it's time to get into our bite-sized review. All right. Well, this week's bite-sized review is actually sent to me by a listener of the podcast. Huge shout out to Tony Bag of Donuts for sending this sample for review. This is a King of Kentucky 2024 16-year-old bourbon. I know the latest release of King of Kentucky is getting a lot of news, but as someone that's never had a chance to try it, I thought I would try it and give it my first thoughts here for you guys today. Now, this is a 132 proof bourbon, which gets me very, very excited for lots of reasons. So this one was actually announced back in October of 2024. It's coming to us from the Brown-Forman distillery. And this is a 16-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Approximately 5,100 bottles were made, and the suggested retail price is $349.99. So again, huge shout out to Tony for providing this sample. That's definitely not a bottle I would have picked up just on a whim as someone that's never tried it, but I'm very, very excited for a chance to try it. So King of Kentucky is an old brand. It actually was established back in 1881. Brown-Forman acquired it back in 1936, and eventually it was a blended whiskey from 1940 until 1968. Then it was discontinued until 2018, where Brown-Forman brought it back from the dead and made it a premium spirit. Now, what's interesting is this is a release of only 63 barrels. These were produced back in 2007, and they're all from warehouses G and J at the Brown-Forman distillery. So what's even more interesting is each of these is a single barrel release. They vary in proof. Of course, this one is 132 proof, but they're all one of 63 barrels, which is really cool. Unfortunately, this bottle goes for a lot on secondary market, so it's one that unless you get a chance to try it at its initial release, it's going to be extremely hard to get your hands on. So again, huge shout out to Tony Bag of Donuts for providing this for review today. Now, what's interesting is this is the same mash bill as Old Forester 1924, which coincidentally also came out in 2024. It's 79% corn, 11% rye, and 10% malted barley. As a fan of that special release, I'm really, really excited to get a chance to try it at 16 years old. That one was 10 years old, but we're going up 6 years older. So I'm super excited for this. All right, let's go ahead and give it a nose. Okay, well, right off the bat, you can tell this is a really old bourbon. I mean, it almost reminds me of opening up the door of an old house and just smelling that vintage kind of antique smell. Not necessarily like mothballs or anything like that, but a little bit of that like cedar chest, old library kind of note. Everything I love about a vintage, well aged whiskey. Not just bourbon, even some scotches give me this note, and it's pretty incredible. But this is a lot of wood. I mean, they call it King of Kentucky, and I think oak is the king of Kentucky, so maybe that makes sense. But man, is that dark and rich and almost like nutty, but not like a sweet nut, but more of like a dark, rich, like toasted or heavily roasted peanut kind of note. Definitely not honey roasted. I was gonna say smells like a candle, but I feel like usually when you get a bourbon scented candle, it's a lot sweeter and a lot more vanilla. This is so much darker and so much oakier that I feel like if this was a candle, it would just be called smells like wood. But maybe I'm one of the few bourbon lovers that really does enjoy that note. So it's a good nose for me. It's very specific. I'm hoping it holds up on the palate because, I feel like a lot of people at this point would think, oh no, is this going to be over oaked? Well, let's find out. Let's give it a taste. Cheers. Oh boy. Wow, that is so rich. I almost forgot that it was 132 proof when I was taking my first sip here. But for being 132 proof, honestly, it doesn't drink it. It does have quite a rich mouthfeel and it definitely is very oily on the palate. But in terms of like the burn, it's barely there. And I think that's because of the age. It's definitely balanced out by those really rich, oaky flavor notes. Surprise, surprise, the oak is there. I'll say this tastes nothing like any old Forester I've ever had, nothing like any Brown-Forman product I've ever had, but that's not to say I don't like it. Typically, Old Forester is not my flavor profile, and I've said this before several times on my YouTube channel, but that 1924 release really hit me with all of the flavors I really like. So this is leaning more that direction. Like I said, this is that, but 6 years older. Well, not exactly. It's not under the Old Forester label, but we know it's the same mash bill, and it's just 6 years older. So the baseline of the flavor I'm getting is really delicious. It's really intense though. I mean, you gotta love that oakiness, that really dark, almost tannic oakiness. I don't want to say bitter. It's not like it's like, I was worried it was going to be over oaked. It's not expressing itself that way. It's just more of like a tannic note. So if you're used to like some darker red wines, you're used to that kind of like numbing kind of sensation that comes from the oak sometimes. That's happening here. The back of my tongue is numb, and it's not the proof. And I'm searching for sweetness because there's a sweet aspect there, but it's not like the sweet vanilla, caramel, or even fruitiness that some bourbons give me. It's almost a sweetness from the oak itself, maybe a little bit like a molasses, like a really extremely dark, dark brown sugar. And finish wise, it's great. It's a very long finish. It's, really sticking to that flavor profile, which I happen to be someone that enjoys it, which is what makes it a little hard for me to do my rating because as you know, my rating on this podcast is just one rating. I give it a score based on price, availability, nose, palate, finish, all things considered. And with that being said, this being a very limited edition single barrel bourbon, like I said, only 62 barrels of it were made. It's quite an exceptional pour for the price. I mean, $350 is way up there in price, but with this being as exclusive as it's been, I get it, right? Is it something that I would go out of my way to pay for? No, but that's why I have amazing Bite Club members like Tony who share their samples with me. But, overall, it's a fun one. It's one that I think takes a very specific palette, like I said. It's a little dark. It's quite a bit, tannic. Someone that's just a general bourbon lover, they're probably not gonna appreciate this in a way that even I say I appreciate it, but I feel like maybe someone with a more refined palate might appreciate it even more. But that being said, it's really a great bourbon, and that's what, makes this difficult, but I'm gonna go ahead and say this is an 8 out of 10 for me. Yes, it would be higher if it was more available, and it would also be higher if it was more approachable in terms of flavor. But with this being my flavor profile, just that really rich oak and just heavily aged bourbon, I'm a fan of it. I actually tried this on a hangout with Tony, and I felt like I was overwhelmed a bit by the flavor of it at the time and said I didn't like it. But revisiting it tonight for a full formal review, I'm giving it a little bit more of a benefit. This is a really great bourbon, and I think they know what they have here. It's just the fact that very few people have a chance to try it. So that kind of brings my score down just a little bit because, like I said, I could go into detail in terms of flavor, palate, and all that stuff like that. But I want to keep these bite-sized reviews. And for a bite-sized review, this is an 8 out of 10. And I'm curious to see if these newer releases are just as polarizing because I'm seeing a lot of debate online. If I have a chance to get my hands on those, I'll let you guys know. But this one from 2024, it's a fun one. So thank you again, Tony, for the sample. Thank you guys always. If you guys ever want to send me something for review, just let me know. Shoot me a message. I'll send you the address to send that to. Would love a chance to try what you guys have been enjoying or what you think I might enjoy. Always fun to try things for you guys. By the way, speaking of that, I'm actually drinking some whiskey from one of my Bite Club members this Thursday on my live stream. Todd sent me a bunch of Augusta Distillery whiskeys. So I'm going to be trying through those with him on the chat. So if you're listening to this on Thursday, make sure to watch that tonight. If you're listening to this after the fact, go check out that replay. Just search Augusta Distilling on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Bourbon Bytes. As always, I appreciate your support. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all the platforms. Thank you all so much for making this possible. This has been the Bourbon Bytes podcast, a whiskey podcast with a gaming twist. Cheers, and I'll talk to you guys next episode. Bye.